Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Soul Whispers, coming home to you. This is episode 11, The Parts of You That Survived, an introduction to internal family systems. So let's begin by taking one slow breath together, in through the nose, and slowly and longer out through the mouth. Let your shoulders drop, let your jaw release, and let this time be what it is, a time that belongs entirely to you. I'm Susan, a certified somatic trauma-informed coach, and all of my credentials are in the show notes below. I'm someone who spent nearly 4 decades in a relationship built on intermittent reinforcement, gaslighting, and walking on eggshells. And all of these pieces created the perfect storm for a trauma bond. I'm here because my deepest wish is to help the person I used to be. You see, I found my own way back to myself once I finally had the language for what I had lived, and I am here to give you that language too. 11 episodes now. Last week, we went into the neuroscience of why leaving a trauma bond feels like withdrawal. And I gave you your first EFT tapping sequence for the addictive pull. I hope you have been tapping. I hope something has shifted, even slightly, even one less urgent urge, even one breath that came a little easier. Today, we go somewhere different, somewhere that I believe is the most gentle and most revolutionary place this series has visited so far. Today, we talk about the parts of you that survived, not as a metaphor, not as a way of speaking, but as a genuine, research-supported, deeply compassionate framework for understanding why you did what you did, why you felt what you felt, and stayed as long as you stayed. A framework developed by Dr. Richard Schwartz called Internal Family Systems. And most important thing I want you to hear before we begin is there are no bad parts. Not one bad part. Every single part of you, even the ones you are most ashamed of, was trying to protect you. And every single one of them deserves to be met with curiosity and not judgment. So let's begin. There was a part of me that kept everything running. In fact, she was extraordinarily competent. She got the kids off to school on time and the dinner on the table, laundry done, kids to their activities. She even did all the finances and maintained the appearance of a household that was functioning normally. She smiled at the right moments and knew how to read the room and had developed over decades an almost natural ability to manage the atmosphere, to sense what was coming and quietly rearrange the environment to prevent it. I used to think of this part as simply me, as my personality, my coping style, my strength even. But now I understand that she was a manager, a part that developed necessarily, brilliantly, at great personal cost to keep the system running and the exile hidden. Because beneath the manager who kept everything running, there was an exile, a much younger part, one who was frightened and lonely and had spent so long not being allowed to need things that she had almost forgotten she had needs at all. And then there were firefighters, the part that reached for a glass of wine when the tension became too much, the part that lost herself in television or books or eating or shopping or planning or house cleaning or any available distraction when the exile threatened to surface. The part that, in the early days after I left, when the exile finally had enough space to make herself known, sometimes felt like she might overwhelm the entire system of my body. When I first encountered IFS, I felt this surge of joy that I had discovered something I had not known. And it wasn't anything because it was painful, though sometimes it was, but because for the first time in my life, I had a map. I had a way of understanding why I had done what I did, why I had stayed, why leaving had felt not just difficult, but like a threat to the entire internal architecture I had built to survive. And then I understood something about my body that I had never understood before. And this was so enlightening. The rheumatoid arthritis I had, the inflammation, the joints, the mornings of convincing my hands and feet to work, was not a separate thing from the parts. It was a part, a protector part, a part of the system that, when the Exiles' pain became too great and the manager was stretched too thin, found a way to make my body slow down, to say, in the only language that could not be overridden or managed or smiled away, something here needs attention. I understood in that moment that my body had never been my enemy. It had been the most faithful protector of all. The manager was protecting the exile, and she had been doing it faithfully for 4 decades. That's not weakness. That is extraordinary loyalty. And she deserved finally and completely to be thanked. And perhaps your parts look different from mine. Perhaps your manager shows up as a perfectionist rather than competent, or shows up as people-pleasing rather than atmosphere management. I had people-pleasing too, believe me. And perhaps your firefighter reaches for food or scrolling social media or busyness or the relationship itself, staying not because you chose to, but because the firefighter was doing its job, extinguishing the exile's pain the only way it knew how. The specifics change. The structure is the same. And the compassion available to every part of it is the same. Now let's talk a little about how the astrology this week can help support what you may be experiencing. We are in the waxing crescent. The moon is growing, returning, building light after the darkness of the new moon. This is the energy of what is emerging, of new things coming into visibility. And today, in this growing light, we turn toward the parts of ourselves that have been living in the dark, not to expose them harshly, but to finally and gently let the light reach them. Now, I want to remind you the blue moon arrives May 31st. It is a powerful full moon. In fact, one of the most powerful full moons this year. And what you open today has a full week of breath before that illumination arrives. Knowing that, let's talk about IFS and how it can help you. Internal Family Systems was developed by Dr. Richard Schwartz, a family therapist who stumbled onto something extraordinary back in the 80s when he was working with clients who had eating disorders. He began to notice that his clients didn't experience themselves as unified. They experienced themselves as multiple, as containing different voices, different impulses, different inner states that sometimes contradicted each other entirely. And rather than treating this multiplicity as a problem to be resolved, Dr. Schwartz did something revolutionary. He became curious about it. And what he discovered across decades of clinical work with clients ranging from the mildly anxious to the severely traumatized was that the mind is not simply multiple. It is multiply organized, like a family, with different members playing different roles, with at the center a self that is always present, always healthy, and always capable of leading the system when the parts trust it enough to stand down. His book, called No Bad Parts, and the title is The Philosophy in 3 Words, has become one of the most widely read frameworks in trauma-informed therapy. And in recent years, IFS has been recognized as an evidence-based practice for the treatment of trauma, anxiety, depression, and the aftermath of abusive relationships. IFS does not ask you to eliminate your difficult parts. It does not ask you to override them, to silence them, or shame them into compliance. It asks you to meet them with the same curiosity and the same compassion you would offer a frightened child, because that is in many cases exactly what they are. Now let's talk about the 3 types of parts so that you can understand it. In the IFS model, parts fall into 3 categories, and understanding these is not about labeling yourself. It's about recognizing the extraordinary intelligence of a system that has been doing everything in its power to keep you safe. Let's talk about the exile. The exile's role is the wounded young part that holds pain, shame, fear, or grief from past experiences. They are often isolated, in a sense exiled from the rest of the system to prevent the pain from overwhelming daily functioning. So what does it look like in real life? Well, it looks like the little girl who never felt safe enough or worthy enough. The part that still grieves the love that was never consistent. The one who believes deep down that she is too much or she's not enough. Another role is the manager. And in this role, the manager is the proactive protector. And they work to prevent the exiles from being activated by keeping you in control, keeping you functional and safe from situations that might trigger the exile's pain. So what does that look like? Well, it can look like the perfectionist, the people pleaser, the one who keeps everything running, the part that always knows what the room needs and quietly manages it into safety. And then the other role is the firefighters. And they are the reactive protectors. They activate when the exiles break through despite the manager's efforts. And they work to extinguish the exile's pain as quickly as possible by any means available. So what does that look like? Well, it looks like the part that reaches for wine or food or scrolling or Netflix or the phone, the one that creates drama or goes numb, the part that stayed in the relationship because the pain of leaving felt worse than the pain of staying. Now, let's talk about the self, the healer within. The self is separate from all the parts and present in every human being without exception. It's what IFS calls the self, not a part, but the core, the essence, the one who was always there beneath the manager and the firefighter and the exile, even when you could not access it, even when the parts were so activated that there seemed to be no still place anywhere. Richard Schwartz identifies 8 qualities of self-energy, and these are known as the 8 C's. They are calmness, curiosity, clarity, compassion, confidence, creativity, courage, and connectedness. And when you are in self, when you are in that core, when the parts trusted enough to step back, these qualities are naturally present. They do not need to be manufactured. They're already there. The self is what does the healing in IFS, not the therapist, not the technique. The self, your own innate, healthy, compassionate core, turns toward each part with curiosity and with love, and in that turning, something shifts. The exile feels witnessed. The manager finds it can relax. The firefighter discovers it no longer needs to work so hard to distract you. The whole system moves towards balance. You already have everything you need to heal your own parts, not as a concept, but as a biological reality. The self has always been there. The work is simply helping the parts trust it enough to let it lead. So let's see what it looks like with IFS and the trauma bond. When I look at the trauma bond through the IFS lens, through the framework of parts, something that was profoundly confusing becomes suddenly completely clear. The part that stayed was not foolish. It was a manager doing its job, keeping the exile safe from the unbearable pain of loss, of failure, of what it might mean to leave. The part that missed him after leaving was not weakness. It was the exile, finally surfacing in the safety of distance, grieving the love it had needed so desperately and never quite received. The part that reached for the phone was a firefighter, doing what firefighters do, trying to extinguish the exile's pain as quickly as possible through the quickest available means. And I want you to know that none of these parts were wrong. None of them were failures. All of them were trying with the tools and the understanding they had to keep you safe. And all of them deserve to be thanked. And I want to say something here that I believe is one of the most important things in this entire series. The body in IFS can be a protector part too. The rheumatoid arthritis I had in my 20s, the condition that the medical system described as my immune system attacking itself, looks different through the IFS lens. It was not my immune system failing. It was a part of the system responding to an exile whose pain was so great, a manager who was so overloaded, and an environment that gave no other outlet for what was happening inside. The inflammation was my body's way of demanding what words were not safe to demand. The pain was actually a protector, making visible what was invisible, making undeniable what was being denied. When I finally understood what my body had been trying to say, when I met the rheumatoid arthritis not as a disease to be fought, but as a part to be heard, wow, I felt such a release. And while the crooked fingers and toes still remain, they're not evidence that my body failed. They are the record of a protector that worked so hard, so tirelessly, that held what needed to be held for longer than any part should have had to hold it alone. If you carry a physical condition that arrived during some difficult times in your life, or even years after, because sometimes it takes a while to process and show up, I want you to consider with great gentleness that it too may have been a protector, not a punishment, not a failure, but a part trying in the only language available to keep you alive long enough to finally be heard. And when I look back at times, I can see how this part was protecting me. I didn't have the ability to speak up and say, I need help with things. So my body shutting down forced the outcome of other people having to help me with things. I also did not feel connected with my ex, who was my husband at the time, because of a lot of the abusive behaviors he had. And I didn't want to be intimate with him, but I felt forced to, and an obligation as a wife. And this pain was so severe that it protected me because he knew it hurt just to touch me. I mean, seriously, even a blanket would hurt at times. So I look back and I can thank this protector part now. I mean, I have healed from arthritis, but back then when I didn't understand it, I now can see it as this part that worked so hard to protect me. And instead of being a victim or feeling angry about it, I can look at it now and say thank you to that part that worked so very hard to keep me safe. Now, I want to speak to the part of you that has spent years being ashamed of your own inner world. The part that calls itself weak for having stayed, foolish for having believed, broken for having missed someone who hurt you, damaged for the ways you coped. Perhaps it was the wine, the scrolling on social media, overeating, some crazy shopping sprees, or just the fact that you stayed too long or you kept returning. IFS offers you a completely different lens for every single one of those things. I am here to remind you, you were not weak. You had a manager working overtime to keep an exile safe, and leaving felt to that system like the greatest threat imaginable. You were not foolish. You had a self that was genuinely capable of love, loving in the only direction available. You were not broken. You have a firefighter doing the only thing it knew, reaching for the nearest available relief when the pain became unbearable. Every part of you that you have been ashamed of was a frightened child inside, doing the best it could in an impossible situation. And frightened children do not need shame. They need someone to finally turn toward them, calmly, with full attention, and say, I see you. I am here now. You do not have to carry this alone anymore. Showering them with love and compassion. God, the universe and source, the intelligence that created you as a whole and complex human being, did not make a mistake when it gave you parts. The parts are the wisdom of the system. The managers and firefighters exist because something happened that required protecting. And the exile exists because you are someone who can be hurt, which means you are also someone who can love. The whisper that you hear from your soul that brought you here through every episode, every week of showing up, has been guiding you toward this moment, toward the conversation with the parts, toward the exile who has been waiting so patiently to finally be heard. So let's do a little somatic practice, meeting one part, if you feel safe to do so. This practice is the beginning of parts work. It's simple, it's gentle, and it can change everything. So I'd like you to sit comfortably, to close your eyes, and take 3 slow vagus nerve breaths. In for 4, hold for 2, and out for 7. Let the nervous system settle. Now ask, not your mind, your body, a gentle question. Which part is most present right now? Not the one you think should be here, the one that is actually here, in the sensation of the chest or the stomach or the jaw or the shoulders. And when you notice a part, a feeling, a tension, an inner voice, a familiar pattern of response, I'd like you to do something different from what you usually do. Instead of trying to manage it or suppress it or even reason with it, I'd like you to turn toward it with curiosity, not judgment, as if you were meeting someone you had heard a great deal about, but never properly introduced yourself to. Now ask it silently and gently, just one question. What are you trying to do for me? And then simply notice. Remember, you don't need to fix anything. You do not need a complete answer. Just the beginning of a conversation. Just the turning of attention. The self turning toward the part, and the part feeling, perhaps for the first time, that someone is finally listening. And breathe. And that turning, that moment of genuine curiosity toward your own inner world, is the beginning of everything in IFS. It does not require a therapist or a technique or years of training. It requires only the willingness to turn toward what has been there all along. Now, if you're ready, let's begin your guided meditation. Getting yourself comfortable, perhaps feet on the floor, hands in your lap, open and receiving. Take another slow, deep breath in through your nose, and a nice, slower, longer exhale through your mouth. Feel the ground beneath you, or imagine it beneath your feet. And the waxing crescent moon is building light in the sky right now. And in that growing light, something is becoming visible that has always been there. You, all of you. Not just the parts you show the world. All of the parts that kept you alive through everything that needed to be survived. So let yourself arrive here. Whole, multiple, complex, exactly as you are. Now, before we meet the parts, let's find the self. The self is not something you have to create. It is already present. It has been present through every episode, every breath, every moment you chose to show up. It is the part of you that has been reading these words, listening to this voice, choosing again and again to turn toward healing. Notice right now if there is any quality of calm available to you, even a small amount, even just in one part of your body, a slight steadiness somewhere. That steadiness is the self. Now let it expand just slightly. Give it permission to occupy a little more of your awareness. You do not need to force it. Just simply notice it and let it grow. God, the universe, source, the intelligence that is present in this stillness, in this moment of self-access, is here too. Working through your natural capacity for calm, curiosity, and compassion. Feel that loving energy all around you. You are not doing this alone. You never were. Now, from this place of self, from this gentle, grounded steadiness, I want to invite you to look inward, as if you are looking into a room or a landscape, a place inside yourself where your parts live. Notice what's there without judgment, without trying to change anything. Is there a part that's very busy? Always managing, always planning, always one step ahead of any possible problem? If so, just notice it. And from the self, send it something it may not have received in a very long time. Acknowledgement. Thank you. I see how hard you have been working. You can rest just for a moment and breathe. Is there a part that is exhausted. The firefighter who has been putting out fires for so long that it has forgotten what peace feels like. If so, just notice it without judgment. It has been working so hard. It thought it had to. And then, from the self, send it this energy and these thoughts. Thank you. You have been protecting something precious. And you can rest too. And breathe. And now, gently and slowly, with the self leading, turn toward the one who has been waiting the longest. The exile, the young part, the one who holds the grief, the loneliness, the fear, the love that was given so completely and received so incompletely. She may feel far away, or she may be very close, right there in your heart, in your chest, or even in your stomach. A familiar ache that you have learned to manage around. Now feel the energy from the self, the calmness and compassion and curiosity that is yours in the deepest nature. Feel it turn toward her, not to fix her, not to resolve anything, just to be present with her for a moment. And say, silently from the self to the exile, I see you. I know you have been here for a very long time. And I know you have been carrying something that was never meant for a child to carry. I am not going to ask you to put it down yet. But I want you to know, I am here. I am not going anywhere. And breathe. Notice what's happening in the body when the self turns toward the exile with those loving words. Even a small shift, a slight softening, a breath that goes a little deeper, the exile feeling, perhaps for the first time, that she has been seen. Now that is healing, not the resolution, but the seeing. Now bring your hand to your heart and feel the steady beat beneath your palm. The whisper from your soul that brought you here was not random. It was the self calling the system home, calling each part back from the extreme roles they had to take on, back toward the balance and the wholeness and the self-led life that is your birthright. You are not broken into parts. You are whole and you contain parts. That is different. That is human. That is the extraordinary, complex, multiple intelligence of a system that has done everything in its power to survive and is now finally beginning to thrive. And as you continue to meet each part with curiosity rather than judgment, as you continue to let the self lead, the parts will begin to trust. And as they trust, they will relax. And as they relax, the system will find its way to something you may not have felt in a very long time. And that, my friend, is peace and love and joy. Not the absence of feeling, but the presence of the self. Just breathe into that right now and let your body experience and welcome in this deep, loving vibration that's flowing all around you of support, of love and kindness and compassion, gentleness and freedom. Now slowly and gently begin to feel the room returning, the weight of your body, ground beneath your feet, and take one final breath in through your nose and a long, gentle exhale. And you may even want to shake your body, shake in your hands and your wrists, just shake off that energy that you want to release. And when you're ready, open your eyes. Welcome back. 11 episodes, and today you met your parts, perhaps for the first time, perhaps with a depth you had not allowed before. This week, practice the one question conversation. Anytime you notice a strong feeling, an urge, an inner state that's pulling at you, turn toward it with curiosity rather than judgment and ask it, "What are you trying to do for me?" And then listen, not with the expectation of a complete answer, but just with the willingness to hear. The exile has been waiting a long time to be listened to. The manager has been working a long time without acknowledgement. And the firefighter has been putting out fires alone. They are all ready for the conversation. And you, with the self as your anchor, are finally ready to have that conversation. So next episode, episode 12, the blue moon in Sagittarius, the rarest full moon of the year, the second full moon in May, an event that will not happen again for nearly 2 years. And under that extraordinary light, we bring together everything from the past 12 weeks and offer it to the most powerful releasing moon of the year. This is the episode I have been building towards since we began. You do not want to miss it. You can find me here every week offering you a safe place to land. And if something in today's episode stirred in you, if you heard yourself in one of the parts, if something in you whispered, "I recognize that," I want you to know that IFS works in some of the most transformative ways. And I also do that work with clients, sitting with the parts, meeting the exile, hearing from the manager. It changes everything. I am now offering one-on-one sessions and also long-term sessions with discounts, and I combine all of these wonderful tools. No part of you is too much, not one. That is, in fact, the whole point. You, my friend, are amazing. If you'd like to book a discovery call, I have left that in the show notes below how you can reach me. But before you go, one last thing, I would love to hear from you in the comments. Which part did you recognize in yourself most today? Was it the manager, the firefighter, or the exile? or all three at different times? Tell me. Your answer might be exactly what someone else needed to hear to feel less alone in their own inner world today. Now, if Soul Whispers is part of your healing journey, please subscribe if you haven't already so that you never miss an episode. And please take the time to leave a thumbs up because it really does help in the algorithm, and share this episode with at least one person today who has ever felt at war within themselves, because this episode will tell them you were never at war. You were just trying to survive. Till next week, love and hugs.